Good evening. At this time, I'd like to call the Board of Education meeting to order. I'd like to ask our board members to identify themselves as I call your name. Todd Ferrante is present. William Buchanan.
Present.
Katie Addis.
Present.
John Andes.
Present.
William Gordy.
Present.
Elaine McComas.
Present.
And Donald Smack.
Present.
We do have a quorum. Can I have a motion to approve today's board meeting agenda and a second? A motion by Mr. Smack.
Second.
A second by Mr. Buchanan. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. And now I need a motion to enter into closed session under general provisions of Article 3-305 of the Annotated Code of Maryland for the following reasons. To approve closed session minutes from the previous month, Section 3-305B, 1, to discuss appointment, employment, assignment, promotion, discipline, demotion, compensation, removal, resignation, or performance evaluation of appointees or employees over officials of who it has jurisdiction, or any other personnel matter that affects one or more specific individuals. Section 3-305B7, to consult with counsel to obtain legal advice, and Section 3-305B9, to discuss matters relative to negotiations. Can I have a motion to enter into closed session and a second?
So moved.
A motion by Ms. McComas, a second by Mr. Smack. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? We are now in closed session. Everyone, thank you for being here. As we reconvene this Board of Education meeting, I want to remind everyone that we do have a quorum. A closed session meeting was held today pursuant to general provisions of Article 3-305B of the Annotated Code of Maryland to approve closed session minutes and discuss personnel matters and to consult with legal counsel, and also to discuss matters relative to negotiations. We have today with us Pastor Bob Boyce from Bayside Community Church, who will be leading us in the prayer today. Please remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pastor Boyce.
Let's pray. Father, as we enter this season of Thanksgiving, we have so much to truly be thankful for, and certainly our family and friends come to our mind. But Lord, we're thankful for this county, Father. We're thankful you for Worcester County Public Schools, Lord. We're thankful for the teachers and the staff that you provide in each school. We thank you for the leadership, Lord, of central office. Lord, we're thankful for the leadership that's in this room tonight. But most of all, Lord, we're truly thankful for your leadership in our lives and how you guide us and lead us. So, Father, I would ask tonight that you guide and lead this meeting, guide our thoughts, guide our words, and guide our actions. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Pastor Boyce, thank you so much for being with us this evening, and thank you for that prayer. And now I'd ask my board for a motion to approve today's open session board agenda from October 15th.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Buchanan, and a second.
Second.
Second by Ms. McComas. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you very much. And now I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Taylor for the superintendent's report.
Thank you, Mr. Ferrante, and just so you won't laugh at me, my voice, I've had a terrible cold. It's not getting any better, so if it cracks, don't laugh at me. I'm going to explain that up front. But thank you again, Mr. Ferrante, for allowing me to give a report tonight. And before I begin my report, I'd like to share my congratulations to Dr. Andes, Mrs. McComas, and Mr. Smack for retaining their seats on the Board of Education. And I do look forward to continuing our work together during your next term here on the Board of Ed. And now I am very excited to share my report because this week is one of my absolute favorite weeks of the entire school year, American Education Week. It's a time where we can showcase what we do. I know I say this every year, but I truly do believe that it is fitting that our nation celebrates public education so closely to Thanksgiving, because having a high quality public education system for the children of Worcester County is something we should all be very proud of, and I know as superintendent I'm extremely proud of. This week provides an opportunity for us to reflect on the incredible work of our teachers, our outstanding teachers, and our educational support staff, our outstanding educational support staff, that are not only the backbone but also the heart of what makes our schools here in Worcester County extraordinary. So I hope our board and our families out there take time this week to visit our schools and see firsthand how our public education system not only honors the individuality, ability, and talents of each and every one of our students, but also uplifts them as they progress on their educational journey. I, for one, cannot wait to see the innovative lessons, beautiful performances, and to visit those incredible kids that invited me to join them for their favorite classes this week. I love it every year when I get a single invitation from one or two special kids in our system. I remain thankful for every opportunity I have to spend time in our schools surrounded by our amazing staff and amazing students. And because we won't be meeting again until after the holiday, I want to wish everyone tonight and our Worcester County Public Schools family a safe and very happy Thanksgiving. I hope that you will be surrounded by loved ones during this special time of year, and I encourage you to take a moment to share with those around you your gratitude for the wonderful things in your life. Again, happy Thanksgiving to everyone here and watching us. And now I'll turn it back over to you, Mr. Ferrante.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor. Thank you for those comments. I'd now like to welcome our 2024-2025 student representatives who are joining us this evening to provide their monthly reports from their high schools. And I believe today we're starting with Chloe. Chloe, welcome, and you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Ferrante. November has been an exciting month as we transition into winter sports, prepare for upcoming parades with the band, and eagerly anticipate the holidays. Our fall sports teams wrapped up their seasons with outstanding performances. The girls' soccer team finished strong with a 7-5 record, advancing to the regional semifinals before a hard-fought match against Cambridge South Dorchester. The boys' soccer team made history by capturing their first ever regional title with a victory over Washington High. Though their journey ended in a tough 3-1 loss to Brunswick High, their achievement is a milestone worth celebrating. The football team completed the regular season with a solid 5-4 record, showcasing their resilience in a closely contested first-round playoff against Colonel Richardson. The volleyball team had a remarkable season with an 8-7 record, making it all the way to the regional final before a challenging match against North Dorchester High. In cross country, Ali Suarez Apacheche shined, placing third at the regional meet, earning a spot in the state finals, where she placed 8th, a phenomenal achievement. In addition to our sports successes, our senior college application day was a tremendous success. We had 37 seniors, nearly half of the class, submit a total of 45 college applications. Several students have already received acceptance letters from top universities including Frostburg State University, Washington College, Arizona State University, Palm Beach Atlantic University, South Carolina State University, and West Virginia University. The future is looking bright for our seniors. 2 Fridays ago, we were honored to welcome Assistant Superintendent Dr. Annette Wallace to our Home to the Hill speaker series. Dr. Wallace shared personal memories from her time as a scholar and athlete at Snow Hill High and urged students to look beyond high school, reminding them that the best is yet to come. She also spoke candidly about mental health, sharing her own experiences with anxiety, which resonated deeply with our students. Her openness and inspiring words left a lasting impact on everyone in attendance. Last Tuesday, we held our National Honor Society induction ceremony, proudly welcoming 31 new members into our chapter. Special thanks to Mr. Severson, our Media Center Specialist, for delivering an uplifting keynote address. This week, we celebrate American Education Week, honoring the value of public education and the dedicated efforts of our teachers, administrators, support staff, and families. It's a time to recognize the hard work that goes into ensuring our students' success and to show appreciation for the entire school community. Looking ahead, we're excited for our annual Family and Schools Together Thanksgiving event this Thursday. Our staff will prepare and serve a traditional Thanksgiving meal, bringing together students and their families for a festive evening. After dinner, parents will have the opportunity to meet with teachers and discuss their children's progress. Sorry, guys. I'm sleeping. The Snow Hill High School Counseling Department is excited to announce upcoming events to support our students' future planning. Salisbury University will hold on-site admissions at Snow Hill High School on Wednesday, November 20th, followed by the University of Maryland Eastern Shore. On-site admissions on Thursday, November 21st. Additionally, a selected group of students will participate in a field trip to Junior Achievement of the Eastern Shore on November 21st. Looking ahead, we are preparing for our Futures Fair on December 6th, where local community members will share insights into various careers and opportunities. The Snow Hill High School After School Academy is still in full swing. We are proud to share that we currently have 100% participation and attendance of our signed-up students. Art League is continuing with their individual projects for the next upcoming show and just recently finished their pieces for a contest submission. Our Food for the Soul cooking class is scheduled to share a holiday treat they are baking next week with students at Snow Hill Elementary School during a WOW bus event. Dungeons and Dragons Club students routinely each week collaborate to construct a narrative, engage in problem solving, and evaluate probabilities of their expected outcomes together. Our math, science, and English academic support classes are full of students who focus on improving their grades and completing necessary coursework assigned by their teachers. We will again offer driver's education scholarships for Session 2 for up to 4 students. Please check out our Snow Hill High School website. We are very proud to share that we are showcasing an after-school highlight video for Session 1. It's been a busy but rewarding month, and we look forward to ending November on a high note. From all of us at Snow Hill High, we wish you a happy, healthy, and joyful Thanksgiving filled with family and gratitude. Now on to Worcester Technical High School's report. Worcester Technical High School National FFA members Brooke Fitzgerald, Andy Maynard, Landon McKinnon, Haley Renshaw, and Jacob Thawley each brought home bronze medals representing Maryland as the 2024 Agriculture Issues Team at the National FFA Convention. Their topic was, "What are the effects of the white-tailed deer population?" Students competed against 39 teams at the National FFA Convention held in Annapolis, Indiana from October 22nd, 2024 to October 25th, 2024. Great job to our students and their sponsor, Jessica Flores. On November 7th and 8th, Skills USA officers attended the Fall Leadership Conference in Ocean City, Maryland. Students competed for statesmanship and advanced statesmanship awards. Students were examined on their business and professional knowledge. They took part in interviews, and they were challenged with creating presentations and executing them in less than 9 hours. All 22 Worcester Technical High School Skills USA officers earned one of 2 of the awards. One of our students represented WTHS and Worcester County as a state officer. Great job to our students, and a special thank you to our Skills USA staff sponsors. One of the most significant milestones this month was our senior apprentices who took a big step towards their professional careers. 7 of our seniors were observed for their Child Development Associate credentials, and they are now working as interns at various locations. We are incredibly proud of their hard work and dedication, and it's inspiring to see them apply what they've learned as they continue on their journey in early childhood education. Additionally, our students in the Teaching Academy of Maryland recently took the Para-Pro examination. 16 of our TAM students passed the exam, which assesses their foundational knowledge and skills and allows these students to receive paraprofessional certification. Great job, students, and to their teacher, Diane Carey. WTHS just named their Staff of the Month and 2 Students of the Month. Mr. Richard Bubba Collins was announced Worcester Technical High School Staff of the Month. Mr. Collins is the school's custodian who has a knack for cleanliness and organization and a passion for purging. Demarion Miller and Yulia Selikova are the November Students of the Month. Demarion is a senior at Pocomoke High School. He is enrolled in the nursing program, and he is the vice president in the Skills USA organization. Yulia is a sophomore at Snow Hill High School. She is enrolled in the biomedical science program. Both students were selected from a list of students consistently receiving positive behavior referral from teachers and staff. Lastly, Worcester Tech is busy planning tours. Ocean City Elementary School visited last Friday and enjoyed learning about the human body using a nanomatage table and biomed, dusting for fingerprints in the criminal justice lab, making music in the digital music program, and using tape measures and nailing nails in carpentry. Middle school tours begin December 4th and we are looking forward to seeing our 8th graders and sparking their excitement and igniting their passions. Now on to Luke.
Thank you, Chloe, and good evening, everyone. There's a chill in the air, but things are still heating up at Stephen Decatur High School. Looking back, we had an extremely busy October filled with special events, celebrations, and accomplishments. For starters, our National English Honor Society sponsored another wildly successful One School, One Community trunk or treat, where we welcomed hundreds of people into our building for a school-wide Halloween event. Donations from the night allowed NEHS to present a $1,000 check to Worcester County Public School Libraries. Additionally, members of our Surf Riders Club conducted area beach cleanups, the Fellowship of Christian Athletes participated in a ramp build for a needy family, the Key Club sponsored a coat drive, and members of the National Honor Society were busy throughout the month volunteering for Believe in Tomorrow and various fall festivities. We are also proud of the many students recognized by our PBIS program so far this year, especially our students and faculty members of the month. Meanwhile, our NHS and Mu Alpha Theta Honor Society members are busy being academic leaders, ensuring that our limited tutorial sessions with the After School Academy are meaningful and engaging. During American Education Week, members of the Educators Rising are busy celebrating our teachers and happily welcoming visitors into our building, and our Student Government Association is hosting another canned food drive for Diaconia. Yesterday, the Key Club sponsored its first blood drive of the year, where dozens of heroes donated blood. Tomorrow, our National Honor Society is sponsoring a wonderful breakfast for the staff, and last but not least, our NJROTC program is preparing for its annual inspection on Thursday. Still busy during the month of November, the student body is collecting and packing toiletries for our Operation We Care for the Troops drive. Our NJROTC is running the Toys for Tots drive, and the drama department is gearing up for the annual children's theater production. In the sports world, we'd like to recognize all of our fall sports teams for having great seasons, especially our golf team for winning the 4th straight Bayside Conference title, our cheerleaders and girls cross-country teams for punching tickets to the state championships, and a big congratulations goes out to our unified tennis team who captured their first state championship last week. Our defending state champion football team has now won 25 straight, and we will take on Walkersville from Frederick County on Friday night in the state quarterfinals at 6:30 p.m. at Lewis H. Taylor Stadium. We're also excited to see our 200-plus winter athletes begin promising sports seasons. December is shaping up to be a busy month also, as band and choir members show off their hard work at various parades and concerts, and as teachers and students prepare for the MCAP exams and end-of-course state assessments. Finally, with Thanksgiving around the corner, Decatur Nation would like to say how grateful we are for the support of our Board of Education members and central office leaders. Best wishes for a warm and wonderful Thanksgiving, everyone. And I also have Pocomoke High School's report. Good afternoon, Board of Education members and executive team. We are excited to celebrate American Education Week this week. We encourage all parents and community members to visit our amazing students and staff as we celebrate public education. We will be highlighting 18 extra co-curricular student groups. Please ask our student greeters about their involvement in these activities when you visit. It is our goal for 100% of the students to be involved in something positive in addition to their scheduled classes. Families, community members, staff, and students are encouraged to donate canned goods as part of the Blue and Gold canned food drive. Celebrations include ending the athletic season with a state title. The Pocomoke field hockey team are 1A Maryland state champions. This is their 22nd state title and the 3rd in 4 years. Celebrations also include the MCJROTC Marine Corps' birthday event earlier this month. Our JROTC organized and executed this incredible celebration. Every Tuesday, Pocomoke's Worcester on Wheels are traveling to neighborhoods to assist parents with our Power School portal, as well as give away food from our food banks. We want 100% of our parents to have updated forms in Power School, as well as have access to their child's grades. Our counselor's office continues to host many post-secondary events. Several colleges visited our campus during Your 60, and many colleges have been visited. Several of our students have already committed to their dream schools. Additionally, at Warwick's recent on-site admissions day, 22 students were accepted, and on Friday, we will be hosting Salisbury University for a similar event. On Wednesday, we are excited to induct almost 30 new members to the National Honor Society. This ceremony is at 6 p.m. in our auditorium. On Thursday, we have students attending the Junior Achievement Leadership Academy. On Friday, we are excited to host our first Career Cafe. Pocomoke alum and community members will be presenting to 11th and 12th grade students on various career fields. Career Cafe for 9th and 10th grade students is scheduled for this spring. Upcoming events also include our annual Thanksgiving dinner event. The day before Thanksgiving, on their day off, staff, with the help of Compass Church, are meeting at PHS to cook for over a dozen families and delivering to their homes. Pocomoke Community School students and staff are grateful for the continued support of our Board of Education and executive team. Congratulations to Dr. Andes and Ms. McComas and Mr. Smack on your re-election to the Board of Education. Your support of our school system is crucial and incredibly appreciated. Happy Thanksgiving to all. And now back to you, Mr. Ferrante.
Lucas, thank you. Chloe, thank you. You had to do some extra work tonight, but there's no lack of activity that's going on in our schools. It's really busy. We can tell, but we appreciate you being here. Thank you so much. It's now time to recognize some of our audience members joining us from the following organizations today. I think I saw Beth sneak in from the WCTA. Hi, Beth. Thank you for being here. From the WCESPA, Ivory. Thank you, Ivory. Thanks for being here. Do we have any Worcester County retired school personnel? I think I see Helen out there.
Yes, thank you, Helen's also glad to be here.
Thank you, Helen. Anybody from SIAC, PTA, anyone else we need to recognize tonight? Thank you all for being here. We appreciate it. Now I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Wallace, who's going to turn it over to Tamara Mills for recognitions.
Yes, good evening. I'm going to turn it over to our multi-talented and person who oversees many different areas, who's going to be honoring 3 different groups from our community who have given back in very significant ways, and some for many, many years to our community. Unfortunately, as this is a night meeting, several of our honorees were not able to attend this evening, but I do believe we have at least one of them here, so we will be discussing them all and honoring the one who was able to make it this evening.
Thank you. I appreciate it. So as mentioned, my name is Tamara Mills, and I'm the coordinator, among many things, of PE and health. And I noticed last year, as I was doing an observation in a gymnasium with a phys ed class, that there were a lot of students that unfortunately were not wearing appropriately safe footwear. And that can be really detrimental in a gym, in a PE class, when you have students running around. And so I started talking with PE teachers, and they are amazing at kind of using their own resources of trying to find things for students. And there was a number of reasons why students didn't have those. Some can't afford athletic footwear. Some choose not to for fashion purposes, right? Some would forget to wear them. They don't have PE every day, so they walked out the door and said, shoot, I have PE today. And some simply, as they get older, like to use it as a reason that maybe I won't have to participate, right? So we were trying to remove all the barriers. So we started this summer, we started a campaign called Sneakers for Safety. And we launched it in August and started putting things out. Every school had a box to collect shoes, and had lots of community members donate pairs of shoes, and it was wonderful. We were very excited. And then we had one community member step up and say, I'd like to help. And not only did she help, it's a really good thing I took my husband's pickup truck because she and her businesses donated 6 giant lawn and leaf size bags of shoes. And so I want to bring up Miss Emily Schramm, who is the owner of Uptown Cheapskate and Kid to Kid in Salisbury. She's also a resident. She's also a Worcester County resident, and has children in our system, so has a vested interest, but also a really kind heart. And so with her help and a lot of other community members, we had over 175 pairs of shoes donated. So those went out to 12 schools. Every school now has a bin of shoes that students can wear just while in PE class if they need it. And like I said, some schools already had that, but it's wonderful to have it. I also want to let her know tonight, and I'm not sure if she's aware of this, she inspired several other people to also start donating. So Brooklyn Riley, who is a Stephen Decatur High School student, kind of saw this campaign, saw what was being done, and took it upon herself to collect nearly 80 pairs of shoes on her own. So thank you for being not only a wonderful community member and helper, but for inspiring others to do the same. Thank you. Our next individual, she unfortunately could not make it tonight, but I do want to publicly thank her. Debbie Smullen is the executive director of Worcester Goes Purple, and we've worked with her for several years. And while we no longer receive the Worcester Goes Purple grant from the state of Maryland, the Opioid Command Center, she still continues to be a driving force in our community to help with many aspects around drug addiction, recovery, education, providing Narcan training. But one of her biggest projects and things that she loves to do is help our schools and our students. And so she's now under the nonprofit of Worcester Goes Purple Warriors. And almost single-handedly, I mean, she has some folks who volunteer with her, but almost single-handedly, she supplies so many needed services and resources to our community. She has now acquired Beyond Your Walls, which is the shower trailer for unhoused populations. But just since August, in our schools, she has provided new teacher welcome bags to 50 teachers, provides food donations to the Healthy Minds Breakfast Club at Snow Hill Middle, has donated materials to our Stephen Decatur Middle School SAD Club, provided school supplies to EL students at Snow Hill High and Pocomoke High. She's working with Miss Miles at Snow Hill Middle to provide back-to-school survival kits. She provided several schools with Red Ribbon Week materials and has donated some startup funds for the Bulldog Brews at Stephen Decatur Middle, and that's just in the last 3 months. So we want to thank her and Worcester Goes Purple. She said to me last month when we were talking about something, and I wrote it down because it felt like a really good thing to remember. She said, the earlier we let kids know that people really do care about them, the sooner that they will seek out better life choices for themselves. And that's really what she does. Okay, and then our the last group that I would like to thank tonight is here in Worcester County, as all of you in the room know, we are very concerned about the impact that we can make in students' lives outside of school time, after school, before school tutoring, summer academy. And regardless of what that is, for the last at least 20-some years that I've been in the county, I have been involved in after school either as a teacher or an administrator, now as the coordinator, and we've always had grants of some kind that help us with our after school programs. But as we know, those grants go away. And so we're constantly looking for more funding sources. And one of the places where we looked several years ago was called the Donnie Williams Foundation. He was a Maryland native who lived in St. Mary's, Wicomico, and Worcester counties, and he credits a great deal of his success to the outside of school time structured programs that were provided to him. And so he began a foundation where he provides funding to different programs that provide that out of school time. Last year, we were honored to receive a $150,000 grant to help provide several of our schools with a robust summer academy. So I did provide to the board and the executive team just a little infographic sheet that talks about how much of an impact that money had. Sorry. Thank you. So just their money alone, while we had several funding sources that supplied our school system. Sorry, just that money alone served 5 of our 14 programs and directly impacted 376 students. 67% of those students were free and reduced meal students. 32% of that population were special needs students, and 43 of that population were non-white students. So it was very impactful for the students who could attend to get that additional work in the summer, to get the academics, the enrichment that they need. And so if you have any questions around their programs, you guys have the paper, and I'm happy to answer specific questions. But again, I wanted to give them, because this is several years now that they have been very supportive and giving to our community, and I want to thank them publicly for that. So. And now I'm going to hand it back over to Dr. Wiley.
Okay. I just want to thank Ms. Mills for all the hard work that she puts into those programs as well. Tamara, you do a great job, and we appreciate what you do. Thank you. Okay, now it's time for individuals and delegation comments. All the individuals who have signed up to address the Worcester County. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I forgot the resolution of plaques. How could I forget that? Mr. Taylor pointed that out to me.
That's my fault. No, I pointed him to the individuals because I thought that was the plaques. So you're right, Todd. It's my fault.
I'm gonna have Dr. Andes read the first. This is, of course, American Education Week, which we're all happy to be a part of, and I'm gonna have Dr. Andes read the proclamation for American Education Week.
Thank you, Mr. Ferrante. American Education Week, November 18th to the 22nd, 2024. Whereas Worcester County Public Schools provides our students with the education foundation they need to understand and value our nation's freedom, civility, and equality. And whereas Worcester County Schools provide our students with the skills and knowledge they need to grow, to prosper, and achieve in the 21st century. And whereas Worcester County Schools give our young people hope for and access to a productive future. And whereas all education employees work tirelessly to serve our children and communities with care and professionalism. And whereas Worcester County Public Schools bring together children, adults, educators, volunteers, business leaders, and elected officials in the common enterprise of providing a quality education for all students. And whereas a strong America is rooted in strong public schools. Now therefore, the Worcester County Board of Education does hereby proclaim November 18th to 22nd, 2024 as the annual observance of American Education Week. Signed by Todd A. Ferrante, President of the Worcester County Board of Education, and Louis H. Taylor, Superintendent of Schools. And I believe Beth Shockley Lynch is going to come forward to accept this on behalf of our community.
Thank you.
Thank you, Beth.
Thank you. Thank you. And now I'd like to ask Mrs. Addis to read the Educational Support Professionals Day proclamation.
The National Educational Support Professionals Day for November 20th, 2024. Whereas public schools are the backbone of our democracy, providing young people with the tools they need to maintain our nation's precious values of freedom, civility, and equality. And whereas education support professionals are integral in the education process. And whereas education support professionals provide a safe and healthy learning environment for students. And whereas education support professionals work tirelessly to serve our children and communities with care and professionalism, Therefore, be it resolved that November 20th, 2024 be proclaimed as National Educational Support Professionals Day and recognize and acknowledge the importance of education support professionals in our public schools, colleges, and universities. Be it further resolved that this proclamation be made a part of the minutes of the Board of Education adopted on this 19th day of November 2024, signed President Todd A. Ferrante, Worcester County Board of Education, and Lewis H. Taylor, Superintendent of Schools. And I believe Mr. Ivory Smith is here to accept that award.
Come on up, Ivory. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you to my fellow board members for reading those proclamations. And now it is time for individuals and delegation comments. All individuals who have signed up to address the Worcester County Board of Education may do so for 1 or 2 minutes regarding information, accommodations, or concerns which may need future board attention. Concerns that are specific to an individual will not be discussed in open session and should be directed to appropriate district personnel for investigation. When you are called to address the board, please speak into the microphone so our live stream can hear, and please state your name and your address for the record. And the first speaker tonight is Kathy Cater. You can flip that on. I think it's
Push it up.
push up. There you are, Kathy.
Test? Okay.
Yep. Yeah.
My comment is short. I just want to take this opportunity to congratulate Dr. John Andes, Elena McComas, Donald Smack with running a appropriate and informative campaign focusing on the strengths and on their strengths and their experiences. Your community values you highly, and we are so happy to have you remain on the board with us. This year, as we all know, was an election process that was divisive in nature. But again, we want to state that we wanted to appreciate that Dr. Andes, Ms. McComas, and Mr. Smack for remaining nonpartisan during this process and focusing instead on the strengths that they have, the experiences they have to offer our Board of Education. My hope is that in the future, we will have another election coming up in a couple years, that the campaign for the Board of Ed will be run in a nonpartisan manner with nonpartisan in an appropriate manner, which focuses on the strengths of the candidate, not political party issues. They should not combine. They should not be introduced at all, because if you are going or alluding to representing a particular party, then you are saying to our community that you are only recommending or representing a certain portion of children. We again appreciate the board for taking their time to always look at every facet of our children in our community and to represent them in a fair and appropriate manner. We thank you.
Thank you, Kathy. Could I just ask you to state your name and address?
Oh,
for
I'm
the record?
sorry.
That's all
I'm
right.
Kathy Cater, 12311 Bishopville, Maryland.
Thank you so much. Appreciate that. Thank you. Our next speaker is Mary Hathaway.
Good evening. My name is Mary Hathaway, and I reside at 132 Camelot Circle, Berlin, Maryland. I come before you tonight as a proud member of Worcester United, an organization that came to life a year ago in this room, in a moment that deeply hurt many people in this room. What began as a difficult time has turned into a powerful movement, one that now includes over 1,200 concerned parents, grandparents, teachers, and community members, all united by a shared vision of keeping our schools great for all of our students. We would like to thank the board members who share this vision for voting last year to continue to support the policies and positions that this board has created that keep our schools great and inclusive for all students, while maintaining parent involvement. Based on recent election results, it is clear that the people of this county cherish our schools and trust in the ability of our educators and our administrators to make decisions that are rooted in what is best for our students, not in divisive rhetoric or outside agendas. It is my hope that this meeting can mark a turning point, one where we can move forward together as a united community, where parents, educators, administrators, and board members are able to address the real issues that are facing Worcester County Public Schools and impacting our students, making sure that we have equitable access to resources, that our teachers are highly paid, that all of our students' mental health challenges are addressed, and that we are able to foster environments where all students can thrive academically, socially, and emotionally. Worcester County Public Schools has a long history of excellent schools, one that we didn't get by coincidence. This Board of Education has the power to continue that excellent work, and Worcester United is proud to do that alongside of you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Shannon Bone.
Alrighty. Hello again, everyone. My name is Shannon Bone. I live in Willards, Maryland, and I'm a proud teacher at Stephen Decatur High School. As my dear friend Mary just said, this time last year we witnessed a new level and version of what we call community involvement. To put it bluntly, all hell broke loose last year. I witnessed our community become fractured, bonded, disappointed, misinformed, focused, and relentlessly determined. As an educator, we were called bad apples, extremists, and told that our students in schools who rank first in the state are not actually that great. In spite of all of that, I remain grateful. As a young educator, I'm grateful for the opportunity to revise and revamp outdated traditional methods, and this past year we shed light on areas of improvement. As a member of this community, I'm grateful for the leadership and advocacy that was shown for our children. This past year erupted a wave of empowerment, connection, and fight that this community has never seen before. How lucky are we to have such amazing advocates for our children and the preservation of their elite education. As I come before you this evening, I'm grateful for the opportunity to ask that we now move on and move forward. Let us get back to improving our education system instead of wasting time and energy on last year's archaic narratives. We answered every accusation and debunked every piece of misinformation rooted in deep disdain for our public education system. It's time to move on. It's time to get back on track for us to meet the blueprint mandates. It's time to have our behind-the-scenes support, working conditions, and our salaries match the high-level product that we continue to produce year after year. It's time to get back to investing our time and energy into the actual students, staff, and community members of Worcester County Public Schools. It's time for everyone to get on board with what is best for our schools, and it's time to move forward together. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Christina Huslander.
Good evening. I'm Christina Holslander. I reside at 2410 St. Luke's Road on the Worcester County side. My kids have gone through the Snow Hill schools, and I am proud to say that they're both doing extremely well in their endeavors. My daughter has been through 30 different states and is currently in South Dakota with some adventures. My son is enjoying his first year and his first semester at University of Maryland, College Park. And both of them had a great foundation here with Worcester County Schools, and I'm forever indebted to all of you in the room. A lot of my favorite people are here. I continue to be involved at the schools, primarily at this moment, with weeding at the elementary school garden in Snow Hill, which I've been doing for a long time on behalf of the Worcester County Garden Club. And I have to tell you that those folks that I see regularly, in particular, the support staff at the school. And for years, the custodial staff are my allies in when I need things, when working in the garden. And it's been a long time now that it has been clear that the population of Snow Hill School, as well as the footprint of the buildings and the grounds, command and need more than 3 people managing that janitorial work and the land and landscaping and all the aspects there. This is not new information. I, on behalf of people who I admire greatly, who are older than me and work harder than me for longer hours than me at the school, you know, I'm always amazed at Mr. Townsend, Ms. Collins, and their colleagues and what they do there. I ask you all to help put on your thinking caps on how we can figure out a way to ensure that there's additional staffing there, because 3 people is not enough. They never feel like they can take a day off without compromising their colleagues. So thank you for giving your attention to that.
Thank you. Is there anyone else wishing to speak this evening? Okay, thank you very much. And now I'm going to turn it over to the curriculum instruction report to Ms. Schwartz for our teacher efficacy and the power of PLC.
Yes, and that is a mouthful. Your title is a mouthful. So I'm going to welcome Ms. Teresa Torpy, one of our brand new principals of Stephen Decatur Middle School, and I'll let her introduce her staff here in a minute, but her title is quite interesting, Teacher Efficacy and the Power of PLCs. And just to tell you a little bit about teacher efficacy, those of you who are educational nerds, like many of us are in this room, John Hattie, who's a researcher around what are the greatest impacts that teachers can make in the classroom, because we know that teachers do 100 different things all day long that impact student learning. One of the greatest things is teacher efficacy, and that is the power of working together and knowing that together you can impact student learning. So one way to do it, and Worcester County does a wonderful job, and I will say that Stephen Decatur Middle gets an A++, is in PLCs, which are professional learning communities. And they've probably done professional learning communities back when they were called teacher meetings and teacher groups, and they've always done a great job of getting together and looking at student data and making great decisions together. But that is really what teacher efficacy is about. Before Mrs. Torpy introduces her team, though, we would just like to congratulate this team on their great scores this past year. Those of you who do not know, they had the top math scores in grade 8 in the whole state of Maryland. So if we could just give them a round of applause. I mean, quite an honor for Stephen Decatur Middle. So these ladies are going to tell us the key to their success around teacher efficacy. So Mrs. Torpy, if you could just introduce your team and welcome.
Yes, thank you, Ms. Schwartz, and thank you all. Thank you all for giving time tonight so that we could share a little piece of the Stephen Decatur Middle School story. Tonight I do want to introduce my team here. I want to start with Megan Fangaletto, who is our CRT. We have Christine Green. We have Megan Ford, Kathleen McDaniel, and Jordan Lau. This is our 8th grade math team, and they are amazing. Tonight, our focus will be the connection between teacher efficacy and the power of the PLC. And so I'd like to get started. And as Ms. Schwartz explained, teacher efficacy is truly just a belief that a teacher has in their own ability to impact positive change in the classroom. And I have always believed in my time at Stephen Decatur Middle School that the teachers there, they have everything they need to do that. They have the knowledge, they have the skills, they have the creativity, they have the passion, they have the positive intent. They have everything that they could possibly need. But sometimes they forget that. Sometimes they don't see it. Sometimes they need a reminder and they just doubt themselves. So the question is, how do we build confidence in our teachers? How do we renew that in them and let them know you have it, just let it shine? So with all of that, I believe that there's lots of avenues to move teachers into a more confident place. But what I know is that PLC is a strong tool, and we'd like to show you how.
Good evening. Thank you for having us here today. So PLCs, at their nature, is a collaborative effort among teachers to basically increase student achievement. And through that process, teachers work through a cyclical nature of 4 questions in the teaching and learning cycle. What do we want our students to know? How are we going to know that they learn it? What are we going to do if they do? And what are we going to do if they don't? And that is hard work, because that's just not one time through the cycle. They are repeating that cycle over and over and over again through the course of a school year. So how do they get through that? PLCs. So PLCs, professional learning communities, but shift that thinking for just a second. If we call it a community for professional learners, a community for professional learners. There's a part of an affirmation, a self-affirmation that says, I'm committed to cultivating spaces where students and staff feel safe enough to show up as their true selves. A true PLC works amongst themselves to create that community where they can show up. In our case, we have 4 with us today in our Math 8 PLC. They can show up and they know they can depend on this team and they can be their true selves in that process. It also involves learning. We're learning all of the time. Professional learners, right? We're learning our students. We're learning about the data. We're learning how to interpret that data. They are learning for themselves, but they're also learning for each other. Because the power of what one person knows, when you put that together with 3 other people and a total of 4 people on that team, it compounds that knowledge exponentially. And who benefits? But our students benefit from that process. So what happens when we have really good and really effective PLCs in our building? It increases teacher capacity. When we can increase teacher capacity, what happens? We increase teacher confidence. When we increase teacher confidence in the classroom, we get that increased sense of professionalism. I can do that. They have the power to increase the student achievement and to reach the students in their classrooms. And when we have teachers who truly believe that, the sky's the limit for them, and the sky's the limit for their teachers. So we continuously work at Stephen Decatur Middle School to build the foundation for our PLCs to be successful. Another piece of teacher efficacy is teacher choice. We have to be able to professionally trust our teachers to be able to say, this is what we need to do, and we need to be able to say, as school leaders, go do it. So we have a PLC menu in place. There's 9 different choices. So the PLCs, for the most part, have choice as to what they do when they engage in a PLC session. I'll tell you about the timing of that in just a second. It's rooted in those 4 PLC questions that I talked about a little earlier. Sometimes we have a school assigned task. Sometimes there's things that we can't get around. Sometimes there's times where we have to say, this is a must-do. But for the majority of the time, our PLCs have the autonomy to choose what they feel needs to be done in terms of increasing the achievement for their classes. So one of the things, when you truly believe in the power of something, one of the things you can give it is time. You throw time at something. We throw time at something that we all enjoy doing, right? And that we all enjoy and that we all believe in. We put time into our PLCs at Stephen Decatur Middle. So twice a week, our teachers engage in mini PLCs where 2 of them have time to collaborate with one another. Once a month, we have time designated during a faculty time for 30 minutes for our PLCs, all 4 of them to be able to engage and work together. Most of the time it's by grade level, like our Math 8 folks. Some of the times our Math 8 and our Math 7 folks might meet. They might talk about how just standards are progressing between the 2 different grades at that vertical articulation piece. There are times where that is extremely important. So I am proud to introduce our Math 8 team, because there are some PLCs that happen because they have to, And there are some PLCs that happen organically. Our Math 8 team is the latter of that, and so I'm proud to introduce these folks.
So now we'd like to show you how our Math 8 team makes this happen. So we're going to turn the microphone over to each of them to share.
So we keep pace with each other. If you walk into one of our classrooms, the same lesson's happening in a different team, and the same happens in all the other 3 teams as well. Our assessments are on the same days. We totally are in sync with each other. We use Desmos, we use iReady, we use Delta Math. To teach our standards, we plan together. Our PLC decides what the best instruction for the students are, and what worked last year maybe didn't work this year. We make those adjustments. We collaborate on our warm-ups, we collaborate on our main lesson, our menu math, our sharing documents, our links. We have a tool to make sure that we're all together.
All right. As Kathy was saying, we have common expectations. We do all use the same program that's been purchased by the county called Desmos, but it's not just that. It's the expectations are the same in each of our classrooms. We have the same graded assignments. We keep it all organized so that we can get to it easily. We can share. That's a big part of this, is sharing the workload. But our expectations are the same, and if you have an A in my class, then you're going to have an A in Ms. McDaniel's class, and so on. We have the same graded assignments.
And bouncing off of that, we also have the same common assessments. So each day we have what's called a cool down, which addresses our learning target. All of us are giving that same cool down. So if I know that these 3 students are not performing well on the lesson, I know that they're assessing that learning in the same exact way that I am. Additionally, almost every single person in this PLC has worked on the MCAP assessments and our common summative assessments for our county. So we know what goes into that process. We know how to get our students ready for those assessments. And when we look at that data, we can understand that they've been given the same instruction. So if they're performing in certain ways, this is how we have to pivot to make sure that we get the students where they need to be come fall or come spring to get them ready for high school Algebra 1 courses. Then we also do what's called data chats. So we talk about data with each other. After we give an assessment, we'll say these are the items that didn't perform well. Why do we think they didn't perform well? Do we need to do further instruction on those things? Or do we need to pull this small group? Do we need to incorporate this warm-up in a spiral way when we come to April?
And daily communication is just that. We meet all the time, but like on the bus loop. But that is where we do most of our on-the-spot talk. What happened today? Let's bounce things off each other. What are we going to do about that for tomorrow? How are we going to use this information for later in the week, next week? So we chat all the time, and it's constructive. We're very reflective also on each other and ourselves, and we can do that because we really admire each other. We each have our strengths, and we build on that. And there is no competition or anything like that between us, so it really does work. And that's why we can do it that way.
With 4 of us, we are able to break up the roles and break up the workload. So somebody's in charge of the agenda for the week, other person's in charge of the main lesson, our Desmos links, our notes, our practice problems, what we're going to be doing each day. Our warm-ups for Math 8, our warm-ups for intervention, our assessments, formative and summative in Schoology, getting them into Schoology. Our intervention classes take a lot of planning as well. We all teach math steps at Stephen Decatur Middle School. We are now, all 4 of us, a big building thinking classroom. That is new this year that we all took on, and it is working very well for our students. So we create those thinking tasks that we use on our vertical articulation boards and our whiteboards, and we work on our whiteboard practice problems, and all of us have a different role to make sure that we are doing it well.
So one of the things that I found has been probably one of the most helpful
experiences I've had as a newer teacher, I'm the baby of the bunch, is to be able to pop into these lovely ladies' classrooms and observe their lessons. From that, I've been able to pick up on lesson flow, teaching practices, classroom norms and routines, and then anything that I connect with and I observe running very smoothly in another colleague's class, I can then go and implement in my own class. And that can be something I plan out for a long goal or even shorter, like turning around like that day, implementing something to make a lesson run smoother. And like Christine said, we're all very reflective, so when we all bounce into each other's classrooms, we're able to provide feedback on what we do well, what we can maybe do differently, and because we're all reflective, we don't only want that feedback, but then we go and we act on that feedback. So that's a big part of it as well. And then, do you want me to talk about communication? Okay.
You got it.
Okay. So then communication to students and parents. We have lots of different platforms we can do this with because we want to have that transparency between what's happening in the classroom and then the stakeholders outside of the classroom. So Schoology messaging and Remind and emails are a great way to mass communicate to parents and students. And then there's also just, the good old time trick of picking up the phone and calling when you want to do a more individualized approach to communicating with parents. Yeah.
Thank you, Matthew. This is our current math data based on fall iReady assessment, and right now we're at 36% at or above grade level. This is just Math 8. This does not include our Algebra 1 students. 35 are approaching grade level, and we do have 29. So we will be checking in with you after January to give you an update after these ladies perform their magic. So again, thank you for your time. If anyone has any particular questions.
Any board members have any questions? Dr. Andes?
Could you please tell me, out of all the middle schools in the state of Maryland, which middle school ranks first in mathematics?
I do believe that is Stephen Decatur.
Oh, it's Stephen Decatur Middle School.
And for any principals in the room, they are not for hire. They are going nowhere. Thank you all.
Thank you. Anybody else, any other board members? I just want to say to the ladies, obviously what you're doing is working. Our students are reaping the benefits of your hard work and your best practice, and we thank you for what you do. We really do appreciate it, and our students are much better off because of all the hard work that you're doing. So thank you so much.
Thank you. You guys, amazing work, guys. You should be so proud, really.
Ms. Schwartz, I'm going to stay with you for the blueprint update.
I know, blueprint. What a right after that, right? So I am going to share actually a little bit of a slideshow because as Dr. Wallace and I and Mr. Taylor and I have talked a little bit, and Carrie, as we've been around talking a little bit about our work with the AIB and Afton around our technical assistant. As you know, board, we started in July. We were awarded a technical assistant grant to work with Afton and I'm not getting a code here, so maybe I'm bragging about myself too much here. I'll do it. Let me just, nope, I got it. There we go. Thank you. As we go around and talk to people, many times they say, well, how is that gentleman Afton? Are you enjoying working with him? And we're like, well, really, Afton is not a gentleman. Afton is a company that we've been assigned to. So I thought it might be nice if you guys met a little bit more about Afton tonight. So I just thought I would take a minute to share a little bit about Afton Partners with you. Every Monday from 3 to 3:30, Mr. Tolbert, myself, sometimes Dr. Apt, oftentimes Ms. Steers will jump on a phone call. We meet with them every week for half an hour. We typically work on Pillar 2 with $60,000 pay scale type of questions, or Pillar 5, which is Mr. Tolbert's pillar, and I know we've discussed that about minimal school funding and how our funds go to schools. But I think, again, often people feel like Afton is a person and that we're talking to someone named Afton. So I just wanted to go ahead and share with you that Afton is a company. It's based out of Chicago, Illinois. And actually, we have 3 partners that we work with. So tonight you're going to meet their faces. So one person is named Dan, and these are all 3 very talented, brilliant people. Dan is based out of Washington, D.C., and Dan has been working with us most closely, and I would say he's probably the guru on Excel and making sure that some of our funding formulas and that we can get to the places that we need to go with a lot of things that we're trying to do. So Dan has been working with us most closely, and I just took snippets from their bios. But you can see that when we first signed up to work with the AIB, we were concerned that possibly we would be working with big organizations that had no school experience, and all of the 3 people that we work with through Afton do have school experience. So his specialty is with K to 12 projects and the data analysis piece, as I said. Kevin Wenzel, he's the senior director, and he actually leads the AIB process. Afton is the lead with the AIB around this whole project. So when we meet with all the 24 districts and that we have group meetings, he is the person that leads it along with Rachel Heiss. So we feel very fortunate to have Kevin as our lead, and you can see that even though he is rather youthful, he does have 15 years of experience, and again, some through government organizations, but he does have public education in his background, and also he is from Washington, D.C. Heather was originally our lead. We were assigned to her first. She is based out of Chicago, Illinois. She has 25 years of experience, which was hard for us to originally understand because she looks very, very young also. But she actually turned around Chicago City Schools and did a lot of work with their finance department, has a lot of experience. She hasn't been a part of as many of our calls as Dan and Kevin have been, but she's very much a part of the work when the AIB comes together, leading that process. So again, we work with them every week. A couple weeks ago, we had a joint meeting with them, and county officials were invited on that meeting. We will be meeting with them again on December 3rd, where county officials will also be a part of that meeting, where we're joining in on the work and sharing with them what work we're doing with the AIB and our Afton partner. There are 4 different partners around the state. We feel very fortunate that Afton is our partner in this process and have been very pleased with the work that they have been doing with us. But again, I've had, we have monthly EAC meetings, Dr. Wallace and I do, and I think even at times the Teachers Association was wondering, who is this Afton person, and what is going on? So I thought it might be nice for you guys to see some faces behind who we're working with. So if you don't have any questions, that would be my update.
Any board
on
members have any
Blueprint.
questions for Ms. Schwartz? Ms. Schwartz, thank you.
All right, and
Thanks
back to you.
Thanks
Yes.
for letting us know that Afton is not singular.
It is
Well,
just not a person, yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, and now we're moving on to personnel exhibit, and I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Wallace.
Thank you, Mr. Ferrante. I do have just a couple of announcements. Ms. Mills just left and asked me to announce. She forgot. If anyone has not voted for the holiday cards out there, please scan the QR code and vote before you leave. Also, to the math people, since I didn't get to say this, you are my people, first of all. Math is my favorite. I used to get to say that every day as a math teacher, but I'm glad I got to say it again tonight. I want to say to our audience, too, and the public who's watching, this is an example of Worcester County Public Schools. There's been a lot of talk, and even earlier this evening, about all the suggestions out there. These are the types of things all of our teachers are doing, looking at data at this granular level, spending time together every day, examining data, examining their own practices. These people are professionals. And to all the teachers in the room, thank you. Thank you, thank you. We are grateful for you. And also my math people, you're my favorite. Sorry to my other people. To the personnel exhibit. Before you have an exhibit this evening that Dr. Apt asked me to present on behalf of Mr. Taylor. And I'm going to read off to you some names in this exhibit, and then I will ask for your approval if the exhibit is presented. So the first one is a retirement, Michelle Rebick, Stephen Decatur Middle School, and that resignation effective date is January 1st. Resignations, Amanda Dean, teacher, Pocomoke Middle School. New hires, Sabina Davis, Buckingham Elementary School. Emily D. Pascal, Buckingham Elementary School. And one promotion, Idlet DeShields, which is a central office staff position, and the superintendent would recommend the approval of that personnel exhibit.
Thank you, Dr. Wallace. Can I have a motion to approve the personnel exhibit as presented, and a second, please?
So moved.
Motion by Ms. McComas and a second by Ms. Zadis. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you, Dr. Wallace, and I'll stay with you.
Would you like me to move down to the table for the...
That's fine. Thank you.
All right, I have a couple of things on the agenda as far as policy. The first thing is you have before you the equity policy. That is brought before you again. Legal counsel I don't think needs to make any comments, correct? No. Okay. So I just want to clarify something for the record. At last month's board meeting, it was stated that looking at the regulations, they are more bare bones in COMAR, and our policy is a lot more extensive. So I just wanted to clarify that that statement is not correct. I have gone through the policy. I have noted each of them. I would certainly be glad to go through line by line. I'm not sure that you want me to do that, but I will certainly have this available after the board meeting. But I do want to note the only things that are included in our equity policy that are not included in COMAR is the following. And I do think that the board had exceptional decision-making when adding this statement that is not included in the requirement. And that is, our students and staff will be models in the community of civility, acceptance, respect, and positive interactions. That specific statement is not in COMAR, however, that is in our policy. The second portion that is not in COMAR but is in our policy that has been a part of Worcester County Public School for as many years as I can remember, backdating my employment in our school system. That is Part C, and that is the Equity Task Force. That was called the Multicultural Committee, which Chloe Hoffler's grandmother ran for many, many years, very successfully in Worcester County Public Schools. But that was renamed under this policy, the Equity Task Force. But again, I don't know how far to go back, but I would say probably the 90s. We've had that committee in place. And then the only other difference, everything else I have cited, and again, I'd be glad to show anyone who would like to see it afterwards, is that in COMAR, it requires this policy to be revisited every 3 years. However, we revisit all of our policies every year. And so, we're going through that process now. So that actually is a little bit different than COMAR. So those are the only additions. So you have before you the equity policy, and the superintendent would recommend your approval of that policy revision as presented.
Can I have a motion to approve the IE-01 equity policy revision as presented, and a second?
So moved.
Motion by Dr. Andes. Do I have a second? Second. Second by Mr. Smack. Discussion?
I have a couple things to discuss or ask questions about. Sorry. With the definitions, when you read equity lens, with the definition, it says means that for any program, practice, decision, or action, the impact on all students is addressed with strategic focus on marginalized student groups. Is anyone able to define what the impact is and what addressed actually means? Like, how are we addressing these issues?
Okay, so we can refer back to COMAR. Are you asking me or the board? I'm sorry, I should have clarified that. You're asking me.
We're asking you.
So equity lens means that for any program, practice, decision, or action, the impact of all students is addressed with strategic focus on marginalized student groups. That is the specific language from COMAR, but you would like, in our definition, you have a question about equity lens in ours, meaning any program, practice, decision, or action that impact on all students is addressed with a strategic focus, and your specific question is what is the strategic focus? Or what is your specific question?
Impact? What is being addressed?
Well, the impact would depend on what the data. So I could give you an example like from tonight on the math team, and a marginalized group of students could be any specific group of students. It could be a student group who has trouble with standard 3. It could be when we look across our data in our data teams and our PLCs that we were talking about today, and we noticed that all of our African American females struggled on the last assessment, and we would look back specifically on what those standards were. In fact, they actually addressed it. They said, we look back and we say, question 3, everybody missed that, or one group of students missed that, what were we missing? So that would be different for every single piece you could look at. I mean, I could give you an example from a science standard if you would like, but we look at, as you heard today, we look at our data. They're looking at warm-ups, they're looking at main lesson, they're looking at menu lesson data. That's going to look different for every lesson, the way we address it. I mean, the way I address it would be very strategic depending on a math lesson and what that was, or an English lesson. I'm sure the teachers behind me could give you 15 different examples of marginalized groups of students in their classroom. Typically, a white male student in a social studies classroom is not a marginalized group of students. Those are typically our students who are very engaged in the curriculum. But it would just depend. Every class that could be different.
My statement is, I just feel like the perspective of each person viewing through that equity lens is the eye of the beholder, which means nobody sees the same, and which creates discrepancies and inconsistencies. Implicit bias training cannot change someone's heart, perspective, or actions. It can only set expectations.
That's an interesting perspective.
We have to rely on our teachers. No clapping, please. So we have to rely on our teachers to look at that and do what they feel is best for their students.
Based on what the data says.
Exactly.
I mean, it isn't my opinion
backed up.
about what, when I look at a group of students, the data actually tells me which group of students are marginalized. So it says, hey, in this classroom, in this setting, and what might be happening, a marginalized group in grade 9 might look very different in a math classroom than that marginalized group is a totally different subset of kids. May or may not look the same, may or not sound the same, may or may not anything. May or may not be in the same classes.
It's all backed by data.
Correct, it's all data-based. Yep.
So
Another question that I had too is we're not voting on this tonight, but I was just curious, why with the social identifiers with the definition B, why is gender no longer a social identifier? I know gender expression and identification.
That's the language from COMAR under .03 definition 5, part D. So we're using that
So we follow
directly.
specifically what COMAR says?
We do our very best to follow it, yep.
Because if that's the case, then the educational equity definition does not match.
And we were also given this document right here, which is the regulations from MSDE that go along to help us shape our definitions so they're more user-friendly to some folks. Yep.
any other questions? Okay. So I have a motion to approve the equity policy. I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
Okay. Dr. Wallace, you can continue.
Okay. I just want to make sure I go in order here because I have a whole folder this evening. So we're going to kind of, if it's okay with you, Mr. Rante, we'll go in the same order that we went through before. I'll go through each of the changes in each of the policies that you have set before you, and then if the board so chooses, you can have one pulled if you have specific questions about it, and we could vote for them all together.
Yes.
Okay. So the first policy you have before you is 2A06 markup, and the changes that were made. This is our implement equity in technology education. And there we just have two things that were specifically taken out. Review data annually and update technology education bias elimination progress. And also disseminate bias and stereotyping in technology education elimination plan to staff and students. Those are things that we do not have anymore. And so we need to remove those from our policy. So that's our first one. And then the second one is our homeschooling program. And the markup in our homeschooling program is under Part B. It says shall be reviewed by the supervisor of student services or designate, and then or the appropriate instructional supervisor at the conclusion of each semester. That was a word that should have said or to start with, and so that's just a correction in that language. That's the only update in that policy. Markup of education of multilingual learners, which is 2A12. The language from the state is not English learners anymore, it is multilingual learners. So you can see that mark through is there. Every place you see English, it will now say multilingual. And then our next policy is 2A13. That is our online courses markup. So this required some significant changes across the, since COVID, our state has been moving sort of forward, but slowly on online courses. Some states have been significantly ahead of us. For example, Florida virtual has been significantly ahead of the state of Maryland when it comes to online courses, but we have been developing better guardrails as a state. And so under this online courses, you can see where we've added definitions. What does the word accessible mean? Blended courses, what's the definition? You can see all of those different definitions there. And then specifically under course approval, we added just some more specifics so it was a little bit more clear as we move through course approval. The courses must meet, one of the things is the accessibility guidelines. Those have extremely expanded in the state of Maryland. Anything we use, teachers use, or students use has to meet the accessibility guidelines. That's something that's new. Caleb Wilson in our district heads up that work. Online courses have to be approved by the coordinator of digital learning, the content coordinator, and the chief academic officer. These are practices that we've had in place, specifically that one, but it isn't something that we had reflected in our policy. Blended learning must be pre-approved. Blended learning courses may use a vendor-created content that's reviewed by the content coordinator and aligned to our curriculum. And then school coordination of blended courses. We just didn't have language there that supported that, so there's that new language there that is a definition from the state specifically about the 20% of instructional time. And then you can see that the teacher is still responsible for communicating with the student in person and online. A school-based counselor and mentor teacher are approved, and a student must have them, because one of the things we don't want is for students to become disconnected from school just because they aren't taking classes in person in our buildings. And then it says a credit earned, taken blended learning courses entered into their student's record. So those are just things that we needed to add to put some guardrails on online courses. Next is the adult education programs. We just changed that language around there to be a little less redundant, so we just marked out MSDE, and then we put by MSDE, so it wasn't said twice there in one sentence. Then we have our grade organization. We needed to make those adjustments. Worcester Technical High School has not been the vocational center for a while, so we needed to update that language. But our elementary schools are pre-K to 4, our intermediate schools are 5 to 6. Some interesting language, and if some of you may have served on the Buckingham Committee and BIS, and if you remember going back to when the person from the state came to visit, they talked about intermediate schools and elementary schools and what our grade bands were. So it's really important to have accurate things like this in policy, because then schools potentially could be counted against each other, which actually don't meet that grade band. So we need to make sure those grade bands are accurate. We are retiring the markup of vocational proficiency certificate. That is not something that exists anymore. So we need to retire that policy. The next policy is 2B12. That is changing the name of Maryland High School Assessments to MCAP there, and also adding now, and we've had this for a couple years now, second year now, in government and biology, they are end of course exams. So they count, and we've had some discussion when we've talked about end of course weights with the board around that. And so we had to change some numbering. And then in our textbook, digital resources, there wasn't the need to put the word resources. Just
saying online and digital is appropriate. It's an extra word to have resources there. We also added disability because that needed to be added for special ed purposes on the back. And then accessibility had to be added because of those accessibility regulations. Our next one is 2C06, and this is acceptable use of telecommunication for instructional purposes. This one is probably the most maybe interesting. Certainly is the most interesting to me. I don't know how much research board members may have done on AI. Certainly the research is ever changing every moment because AI by the minute is changing because more information goes in and then more output is developed. So we need to begin to put some guardrails around artificial intelligence in our district, how it's used, and our plan for educating our teachers on this. So this is our first dipping our feet into the pool of AI, and I think one of the things that's very special about Worcester County Public Schools is we always aim to be sort of ahead of the curve. So, you know, I think there was a time, I remember because I was a student in Worcester County Public Schools, when people said, if those computers come in our classrooms, they'll replace teachers, and we won't even need teachers anymore. You know, and Worcester County Public Schools did not take that side and say no to technology. Worcester County Public Schools said yes to technology. We continue to say that. So this policy, I know all of you have looked through it, but this update to this policy defines what AI is, talks about the responsibility of our staff in providing instruction on appropriate and ethical use. I don't know if anyone has used AI. I have been dipping my toe into AI, and what I have learned is it isn't what people think it is. Like, it is not like, oh, hey, do this for me. There is an art and a science to producing the prompt that you put into AI to get the response you need out of it. And the art of that takes a knowledge of the content that you are studying and that you are aiming to get information out of. Otherwise, it's very not purposeful. Because we want our teachers to be able to guide students in creating and evaluating AI content. We want to ensure that AI does not replace learning experiences. We want our students using AI to supplement, not replace critical thinking and problem solving properly. We want them to be able to properly cite their work. And so I'm not going to read through all of these, but this is just our first step into creating some guardrails. We actually have, and I don't want to say it's like 20 pages now, we've been working on a procedural document for guiding our work in our district, but this piece we needed in policy to get some guardrails in. So those are all the policies you have before you. Questions?
Yes, board members, anyone have any questions regarding the policies that Dr. Wallace has gone over with us this evening?
I do.
Yeah. Yes, Ms. McComas?
Just FYI, under the AI, which also fascinates me, and I've kind of dipped my toe in it too, we will be establishing a committee.
We already have it. We actually already have a committee.
Do we really?
We have a committee that has been meeting for over a year. Yes, and has developed our nearly probably approaching 20-page document on this.
Okay.
So, and we actually have our staff member that's leading that committee has been presenting at conferences throughout the state and I would say nationally on the work that he is leading with our group.
Wonderful. Okay. We need an overseer.
We have a lot of bodies on it, not just one body, because I think one body would also be a mistake on it.
Thank you.
Lots of bodies.
Can I make a request?
Sure.
Can I request that at some point within the next year we have a presentation on AI?
Yes, that's actually one of the things that is on our agenda to present to the board on AI, because our coordinators that are in charge of it actually requested that they have the opportunity to come and present to you all.
And I believe Caleb did a brief presentation at the Aloft when you all were able to come this summer. Yes. So those of you who were able to join us this summer, he did a brief presentation.
But we can definitely add that.
Absolutely, yes.
I think you'll be extremely impressed. We are extremely happy with the work. I think we would be doing our students a disservice if we weren't teaching them to harness technology and the power of technology. If we don't teach them how to do that, they will enter jobs in the workforce where they will be expected to use AI to help and influence their decision making. And so we want to make sure we're at the forefront of that. So we'll definitely add that.
Just as an aside, our son works for a company in the area of AI and ethics in medicine. So what we're doing here is what our students are going to be needing. And at Salisbury University, AI and ChatGTP have been a major area of discussion in terms of student papers. Let's just stop there in terms of student papers. And I'm sure at the high school level, maybe middle school level, there are some students using ChatGTP in terms of essays, term papers, research projects, and so forth. So thank you for being ahead of the curve.
And absolutely, and specifically what you just spoke about is what has been a large focus of the group, and that has been how are we going to roll out instruction to teachers so that we are really asking our students to do things that are very purposeful, like around our research papers. Like, are we just asking to submit a paper, or like what other pieces go along with that where they can show us their learning and their thought process along the way? So a big portion of that plan that you will get to hear about in upcoming meetings is focusing on teachers.
Any other questions on the 10 policies that Dr. Wallace presented in Book 2, or revisions or updates? Any questions on this? Okay. The superintendent is recommending the approval of this, Dr. Wallace?
Yes, sir. The superintendent would recommend approval of Book 2, instruction policy revisions as presented.
Can I have a motion to approve Book 2 and the policies and revisions as presented? And first, a motion and a second, please.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Buchanan.
Second.
Second by Ms. McComas. All in favor?
Aye.
All. Any opposed? Thank you very much, Dr. Wallace. We appreciate it. And now I'll turn it over to our board attorney for an update on how are you doing. It's nice to hear from you tonight. Yes.
So briefly, before you on your agenda, you have something called insulin.
Heather, we can't hear you. Just speaking to that mic.
I don't ever get to do it, so I don't know how to work it. Hello?
Thank you.
All right. So briefly, before you in your agenda packet, you have insulin litigation. And so what that is there is a law firm based out of California who has undertaken what's called a mass action lawsuit. You've likely heard of something called a class action lawsuit. There are some legal nuances as to the difference. I can get into those if you like, but think of it generally like a class action lawsuit. And they have contacted various boards of education across the country, as well as other public bodies. What they're doing is they're trying to amass plaintiffs to join into a lawsuit where essentially there's a suit being filed that alleges that insurance benefits that had been provided to employees have been not properly paid for by the in this case the county because of an overcharge of these insurance companies. And so the claim is that manufacturers and pharmacies and pharmacy benefit managers working perhaps in cahoots with one another have inflated the cost of certain prescription medication, namely insulin. And so we were reached out to, like all other boards of education in the state of Maryland, and asked to join this. Given the way that this board is insured, we contacted the county commissioners. We shared this information with them, and it's my understanding that this same general presentation has been made to them, and they too have agreed to join in this mass action lawsuit. And so as a result, it would make sense that in working in partnership with the county, that we join in the suit as well. It's my understanding that a number, if not a large majority, of the boards of education throughout the state of Maryland have already joined. And so with that, if there's no questions, I would recommend that the superintendent enter into the retainer agreement with the law firm to join the mass action suit. Notably, often I think people think attorneys and they think, well, how much is it going to cost? And the answer is there is no attorney's fees that will be incurred by the board or by the county. If a recovery is made, then the attorneys representing all of the public bodies will take a percentage of that recovery. I think another question people often ask when being presented with joining a lawsuit is, well, is there any risk? And other than time, because time will need to be expended by staff, there is no risk. You're not going to be countersued or otherwise have some liability because you have joined. Are there any other questions or anything that I didn't address that might be helpful in making this decision?
Not at all. Any board members? So our board attorney, Ms. Stansberry, is recommending this. Can I have a motion to join the insulin litigation and enter into a contract with the France Law Group as presented? Motion by Mr. Smack.
Second.
A second by Dr. Andes. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you, Ms. Stansberry.
Thank you.
And now I'm going to turn it back over to Dr. Wallace for the revised MOU with the School Resource Deputy Program.
Yes, before you this evening, you have a revised MOU. We were contacted by the county commissioners about some questions and had a joint meeting with their leadership as well as the leadership of the sheriff's office and had a very productive meeting. They had some language changes that they requested. Specifically, I'll direct your attention to them on page 2. They preferred the word shall over will. The sheriff's office as well as our offices had no problem with changing that word. And then throughout the document, you'll see again on page 4 and again on page 5, the same changes from that word. That does not change the meaning. We consulted with our legal counsel on it. Both words have the same meaning, but certainly it's no problem with having that word there. On page 6, I will add to you that we are adding a statement that says or required by law. That was a statement that was asked to be added. However, when it's required by law, it is required by law. So having that in our statement is just a reminder of our binding responsibility to the law. And then a final, on page 9, there is another shall. Also on page 9, regarding the canine scans, it is, there's an addition of to maintain operational integrity, knowledge of date, time, location of canine scans shall only be distributed to senior administrative officials for the purpose of preventing scheduling conflicts. We have not had any issues with that, but we're certainly putting that language in there as a guardrail. And then again, on page 9, we have replacements of the word shall, replaced with the word will to shall. And then also there that it says reports redacted of personal identifying information. Those reports that you get that will be submitted also to the commissioners, that information is already redacted. So that doesn't change the meaning of our agreement at all either. And those are the changes. So the superintendent would recommend approval of the revised School Resource Deputy Program MOU as presented.
Can I have a motion to approve the revised School Resource Deputy Program as MOU as presented today? I need a motion and a second. Motion by Mr. Smack.
Second.
A second by Dr. Andes. All in favor?
Aye. Any
opposed? Thank you, Dr. Wallace. Back to you with a safety update.
I have a busy night tonight. Not after, just right here. Just to review, one of the things that did happen this month is that we had a very productive meeting with our county leadership of our sheriff's office and our county commissioners and working together. And Mr. Ferrante, appreciate you joined us for that meeting. We did have a very productive meeting, all of us working together, and I think everyone was happy with the outcome of that meeting. We have our second school safety meeting tomorrow. More to come on that. My microphone has had enough of me tonight. It's cutting out now. And then I also will share that on Election Day, we had a lot to celebrate because we had an outstanding professional development day, which is the adding of conscious discipline to our school system, which I believe is going to continue to enhance the safety of our schools. As we looked at the data from our teachers and our staff on their responses to that professional development, they were extremely positive, and we are very excited about the blending of the two of those of that program with our already successful restorative practices program, which we do believe is much of the success that we've been achieving as a school system. So I want to thank Ms. Shorts for her leadership of that because she organized that day, and that was a big day for our school system. But also, I do believe those two things are working very collaboratively to increase and enhance the safety of our schools. So back to you, Mr. Ferrante.
Thank you. Any questions for Dr. Wallace regarding the safety update, board? Okay, thank you very much. And now I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Tolbert for physical operations.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Ferrante. Our first item is under Joe Price, our facilities planner, is MOU for the Maryland Built to Learn School Construction Funding for Buckingham Elementary School. Mr. Price.
Good evening, Mr. Price.
Good evening. Last month, the board approved the memorandum of understanding with the Interagency Commission on School Construction for the Buckingham Elementary and Berlin Intermediate School projects. We have a second memorandum of understanding for which we are requesting authorization for the board president's signature. The second MOU is with the Maryland Stadium Authority and will make available $5.5 million of built-to-learn school construction funding for the Buckingham Elementary project. Following county government and Board of Education signatures, the MOU will be presented to the Maryland Stadium Authority Board on December 3rd. And the funds will be available immediately for us to begin schematic design on Buckingham Elementary.
That's great news.
And the superintendent recommends approval of the board president's signature on the Buckingham MSA MOU.
Okay, board, can I have a motion and a second to approve the MOU for the Maryland Built to Learn School Construction Funding for the Buckingham Elementary School replacement as presented?
So moved.
Dr. Andes, thank you. And a second by Ms. McComas. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, Mr. Price.
Thank you, Dr. Andes.
Thank you, Mr. Price.
I just wanted to point out that when we originally started this process, the built-to-learn money was totally ineligible for the project. And it took a tremendous amount of energy from Mr. Price and other people to have that built-to-learn money become available. Because when we first started sitting down and having this conversation with the work group, it was the IAC's position was the built-to-learn money was not eligible for the Buckingham project. And thanks to a lot of work by a lot of people, especially Mr. Price, all of a sudden, and now we have the built-to-learn money available for the Buckingham project, which is, as you see by the number, $5.6 million. That's money we didn't have a year ago. And now we have it. So thank you, Mr. Price.
Thank you, Dr.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Price. Mr. Tolbert, I'm going to stay with you for the FY24 audit.
Yes, next up we have our FY24 audit, and Dan Inser, principal at UHY, is going to come up and sit at the table with me and present the FY24 audit to the board.
Is there anything in that box?
Lots of goodies. Bring hard copies. Here's about 100 pages.
It's good reading tonight, Dr. Andes.
I already read it.
It's also in your
Yes, I know.
If you want a copy, who wants a copy? Anybody?
I'd like another copy. I read it online, but give me another copy.
I'll take one of those.
Thank you. Two reports.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
So thank you. Good evening. As Vince said, I'm Daniel Inser. I'm a CPA with UHY out of Salisbury, and we performed the annual audit 2024 for the Board of Education. This is an annual audit. It's required by state law and is submitted to MSD, Maryland State Department of Education. So I'm going to start with the document, the larger document. It's titled Audited Financial Statements. Again, this is for fiscal year ending June 30th, 2024. And I'll try to keep it high level. I know we're getting late into the evening, so I'll try to be brief. After the table of contents, you have the independent auditor's report. It is an unmodified, clean audit opinion. That's what you're looking for. And I'll just summarize. In our opinion, the financial statements present fairly in all material respects the respective financial position of the governmental activities, the business activities, each major fund, and the aggregate remaining fund information of the Board of Education of Worcester County. And that independent auditor's report continues to talk about some of management's responsibilities the auditor responsibilities. These financial statements include required supplementary information as well as additional supplementary information. So that's the first letter. We continue to a second letter, and this is the independent auditor's report on internal control over financial reporting and on compliance. And again, this is unmodified opinion. So while we plan and perform the audit, we don't audit internal control per se. We're not giving an opinion on internal control, but we do consider internal control when we develop our audit procedures. And so in doing so, we did not identify any deficiencies that we consider to be material weaknesses. Okay. Then starting on page 8, the section called Management's Discussion and Analysis. Vince prepares this section, and right there on page 8, I'll point out a couple key highlights towards the top. Again, on page 8, net position of the board. It's in a deficit position of almost $91 million. It sounds like a lot, but that was actually an improvement of almost $40 million from last year. And you're not unique. Most, I would say most, if not all, boards of education in our state are in a similar position. And the primary reason is the large liabilities on your balance sheet that relate to OPEB, other post-employment benefits, retiree health insurance, essentially. And so that's a very large liability on the books of the board. Bullet number 2 for key financial highlights, the general fund had a fund balance of $2.3 million, and that decreased $1.3 million from the prior year. And within the general fund, there's an unassigned fund balance of $567,000. This will be used in the fiscal year 26 budget to balance the budget. And that number hasn't changed for a number of years. So management discussion and analysis runs from page 28 all the way to page 22. It gives a nice summary of the financial statements. If you weren't going to read anything else in the financial statements, you could read those pages and get a good understanding of what's going on with the Board of Education. So I'm going to move forward to page 24. This is the statement of net position. This is considered a government-wide financial statement. It's full accrual, so this is the only place, only financial statement that you will find your long-term capital assets. You also find your long-term liabilities. And like I said, the total net position of the board on page 24 total is a deficit of almost $91 million. On page 25 is a statement of activities. I've never liked this statement myself. It reads different than traditional financial statements. You start with expenses and then read it left to right. But what I want you to come down to is on the right-hand side, the third row from the bottom, you see change in net position of $39.4 million positive. And that, again, relates primarily to your OPEB liability, your retiree health insurance. You've had good experience with that number. This goes to the actuaries. They calculate this number, but you've had good experience, and also interest rates have been to your benefit. Higher the rates, the more discount you have for the present value of that liability. So I will continue moving forward. Page 26 and 27 are your governmental funds. You have a balance sheet and then a statement of revenues and expenses. On page 26, the balance sheet, the board has 3 governmental funds: the general fund, capital projects, and then school activities. You can see the items under each fund there. I'm looking at page 28 now. The statement of revenues and expenditures. Total revenues in the general fund were $133 million. Total expenditures were $134.6. And so your net change in fund balance was a loss of $1.3 million. That's primarily attributed to fixed charges, and if you drill down a little further, it's the increase in health insurance for the year. I'll move forward to page 30 and 31, talks about the food service fund. That's a business type activity, enterprise fund. There was a positive change in that position of $50,000. And the food service fund is designed to act as a nonprofit, essentially. You don't want large losses or large profits. You're there to feed the students. And so you had a positive change of $50,000, which is pretty good, I would say. Page 33 and 34 are fiduciary funds. So there's a private purpose trust fund as well as a retiree benefit trust fund. So we have this large liability for our OPEB, and we've set aside money in this retiree benefit trust fund, and it's grown to almost $46 million. That was a $10.6 million increase for the year. The board, as well as the county, contributed $13 million. There was an increase in the fair value of investments that are held, so that's a positive, almost $3 million of interest, and just change in the market value yielded a positive change in that position of $10 million. Page 35 starts the notes to the financial statements. Note 1, you'll find lots of information about the board's policies, accounting-wise, accounting policies. I'll also point your attention to page 46. That starts note 4, which talks about pensions and pension plans. You have the teacher's pension plan, which the state is responsible for funding, but you also have the other employees' pension plan that the board has a liability for. I'm going to skip ahead to note 7. And I've been talking about the OPEB, so other post-employment benefits is note 7. And there's about 5 pages there that talks about gives you all the information you could possibly want as far as that liability, funding of that liability, so on and so forth. We'll skip ahead a little bit more and just point out one more statement for you. On page 60 is the budgetary basis. It's the budget comparison, budget to actual. Just wanted to point that out for you. Talk about budget a lot. Everything was within budget, and revenue-wise, interest income on cash balances was more than anticipated, so there's a positive variance for revenues. That will conclude what I wanted to touch on the financial statements. I can certainly field any questions that you might have.
Board members have any questions? Thank you for that detailed explanation. We appreciate it. We know it could have been longer, and you shortened it.
I do my best. So you have one more report, and this is it's titled Audit Communications. It's a much smaller copy that you have there. So there are required communications that the auditor must have with the board, and that starts off our first letter. There were no new accounting policies as far as accounting standards go. Fiscal year 24 was quiet for once, and we'll talk about some upcoming standard changes, but for fiscal year 24 there were no new accounting policies. I'd like to point out that accounting estimates are an integral part of these financial statements, so depreciation expense, I've mentioned this liability quite a bit. It's at the end of the day, it's an estimate that the actuary comes up with, and so those estimates are integral to the financial statements. Of importance to the user in the financial statements, the footnotes, I pointed out footnote 4 and footnote 7. You can tell just by the length of the footnotes. One's 6 pages, one's 5 pages, but those notes are important to the users of financial statements. We're happy to report that there were no significant difficulties dealing with management and no disagreements arose during our audit.
So what you're telling us is we can keep Vince on for at least one more year?
He's good for another year. So there's a second letter, and kind of re-emphasizes that we did not audit the board's internal control, but we considered it. We didn't find any significant deficiencies or material weaknesses, but we'll talk about two general comments that we had during our audit, and they're pretty similar to years past. The first one on the following page is page 9. It's not a recommendation, but just an encouragement to continue to do what you're doing. At the school level, a lot of funds flow through the schools. Any given year, up to $3 million can flow through all the schools of the county. And so it's important to have someone at the central office reviewing monthly bank reconciliations, making sure that segregation of duties is there and that monitor is taking place. The board also has over $300 million of capital assets, buildings, equipment, and the like, and I believe there's a fixed asset software, but it has not been fully implemented, at least during fiscal year 24. And so we would like to encourage getting that software up and running, fully implemented for tracking of capital assets. And that'll just help with financial reporting, and make my life a little easier. The last section is titled On the Horizon. And while fiscal year 24 was quiet, that is not going to be the case next year. There's a new accounting standard for compensated absences that will go into effect in fiscal year 25. There's a new accounting standard for risk disclosures, and that goes into effect in fiscal year 26. And there's a new financial reporting model improvement standard that goes into effect in fiscal year 27. So lots of change from the accounting world impacting the board's financial statements. And that concludes my presentation, unless you have questions.
Board members have any questions?
I have a question. I guess it's more for Mr. Tolbert, but can you comment on that software? Are we planning on implementing that within the coming year, or how is that looking for us?
Yes, we are. We have it, we've purchased it, and most of the information is in the new software, but not all of it is in yet, but our goal is to have it all in before the end of this coming year.
Sounds good, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions for Dan? Dan, we appreciate the update. Thank you for coming before us in a late evening, and we appreciate all the information. And should we have any other questions, I'm sure that we'll reach out to you.
Please reach out. And I just want to thank Vince and the whole finance department for their cooperation during the audit.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Tolbert.
Take care. You're welcome.
Mr. Tolbert, I'm going to stay with you for the monthly financial report.
Yes, sir. Yes, the board has in front of you the monthly financial report for the month of October with non-salary expenditures totaling $3,475,462.52. The superintendent recommends approval of the October financial report as presented.
Thank you, Mr. Tolbert. Can I have a motion and a second to approve the October 31st, 2024 monthly financial report as presented?
So moved.
Motion by Dr. Andes
Second.
and a second by Ms. McComas. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you very much, Mr. Tolbert. And now we've come to Board of Education reports, and I'll reach out to my fellow board members for comments. Dr. Andes.
I just want to encourage our parents, community members to, whenever possible, to visit our schools because we have some outstanding musical performances coming up. And I know our students and our vocal and instrumental music teachers spend a tremendous amount of time getting ready for the concerts in performances in December. So I hope everyone in our community attends and cheers on our vocal and instrumental music students and their teachers. Thank you.
Mr. Buchanan.
Along with that, Dr. Andes, this afternoon, as a matter of fact, I was at Snow Hill Elementary School for the music portion of, I would call it the winter music program, but the way that the weather's been, I don't really think it's the winter time. But it was very, very impressive to see up on the stage the whole entire second grade and third grade all dressed as crayons. And I thought it was very it was very it was very good to my heart to see art being involved in the music program. I also want to congratulate Pocomoke High School field hockey. I think Lucas, when he gave his report for Pocomoke, kind of stole my thunder a little bit because I wanted to reiterate when I was looking at the statistics for the 1A state scholarship championship that they did. Pocomoke field hockey has won 22 field hockey state championships. 22 in the program's history, and 3 of them were over the last 4 years. So for a little tiny high school in Maryland, Pocomoke City or Pocomoke High School and field hockey has always been a major force.
Mr. Buchanan, if I
Yes.
can add to that, yes, they've won 22, and they've been to the state finals 28 times.
Thank you. And the last thing, I too would like to congratulate John and Donald and Elena on their reelection. They've always taken the high road when it came to the students and the school system, and that high road was carried into their campaigns. And Worcester County Public Schools and the citizens of Worcester County are very fortunate to have these 3 sitting around this table for the next 4 years.
Thank you. Status?
I just want to address the community because within the last, I guess, month and a half, there was some information that was put out there that I want to address. On October 9th, our very own Worcester County Teachers Association went on Facebook to spread disinformation to the public. They stated, and I quote, "Worcester County Public Schools do not have boys in the girls' bathrooms. This is false information. Our board has been made aware of this issue. It has been brought to the attention to myself by multiple parents and students. This issue was also brought to the Board of Education where we had discussions about this issue during a closed session, which our board lawyer is able to verify. To say that there are no boys in girls' bathrooms is a flat-out lie and is doing a disservice to every female student who feels uncomfortable in our schools. Statements have been made such as any child who feels uncomfortable can use the nurse's office bathroom. They are true, but negates the real issue. The issue is girls should be able to use the girls' bathroom without feeling uncomfortable that a male student is in the same area as them during one of their most private moments in their school day. They should not be pushed out of the girls' bathroom to use the nurse's bathroom because they feel uncomfortable in their own space. Let me be clear, this is not an issue of anyone being transphobic. This is an issue of girls wanting to feel safe in girls' restrooms, in school, and the parents of girls wanting their daughters to feel safe and be safe during school hours. Let me also be clear that this being addressed today is not because there are greater issues at play in the state of Maryland and the circuit courts dictating how one decides what bathroom they should use, but to simply state that our Worcester County Teachers Association must make sure they are putting out correct, credible information out to the public. This is one statement that should have never been made. On a lighter note, I am excited to have received a few letters from students and invitations in the mail for American Education Week. I look forward to attending as many schools as I can within the next couple of days and hopefully meeting each student who was so gracious to write me those letters. So I look forward to that. Thank you.
Okay. No clapping, please. Mr. Smack?
I received in the mail from a young man from Buckingham Elementary School named Dylan Rounds. He wrote me a lovely, lovely, pretty letter. And I went over to the school, I took pictures with him and his classmates. I had a joyful time with him. Dylan Rounds, we listen, thank you, sir. You're a very, very young man. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Smack. Anyone else? Ms. McComas? No? I just want to, Mr. Gordy had to leave. He wasn't feeling well this evening, but I'll say something that we were both going to say because we were going to talk about the same thing. We just want to congratulate the re-elected board members on their, not only their great campaigns, but the fact that they've served this board extremely well over the last 4 years. And I am glad to be able to serve with you again And I think that our school system is better off by your service. So we thank you for that. And the final statement regarding what Ms. Addis had addressed about there is a federal law that was expanded by the Biden administration, which mandates that should you identify as a female, you have the right. This is not a Worcester County law. This is not local control. This is a federal law. And although that law could change, this is a law that's been handed to us. So I want to make sure I'm clear on that.
And I just want to reiterate that I was not trying to suggest that there is no law. That's why I said what I said. I'm just trying to say that putting out information that is not correct should not have been done.
Right. Okay, and if there is no other comments, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Taylor for informational items.
Thank you, Mr. Ferrante. I have one information item tonight. Schools will be closed celebrating Thanksgiving and the Thanksgiving break from November 27th, that's a Wednesday, through the 29th on Friday. And everyone, again, I wish everyone a very happy Thanksgiving. Thank you, Todd.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Taylor. The Worcester County Board of Education will hold its public budget input meeting on Tuesday, December 3rd, 2024, right here in the central office at 6 o'clock at the Sarah D. Thompson Board Meeting Room in Worcester County Board of Education Central Office at 6270 Worcester Highway, Newark, Maryland. The board meeting information is posted on our website, www.worcesterk12.org, located under board meeting/board docs. And if there's nothing else, I'd ask my fellow board members for a motion to adjourn.
So,
Motion
second.
by Mr. Smack and a second by Dr. Andes. All in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned. Thank you.